Hello, my mystery seekers. I'm Greg, with my blog, History Mystery. Today, we're diving into the dramatic and tragic story of Air India Flight 171. A crash that shook the aviation world and left behind a trail of unanswered questions. What really went wrong? Were there warning signs? And could this disaster have been prevented? We'll break down the key problems, analyze the events leading up to that fateful moment, and explore some of the most compelling theories that might help us understand how such a tragedy unfolded. As always, I've got my right-hand guy, Brian, here to help me piece it all together. Brian, take the stage.
Thank you, Greg, for setting that stage. I've got the wheel now, and don't worry, I won't crash us. Let's uncover what happened here and explore how this event influenced the development of modern safety protocols and engineering solutions. Air India Flight 171, a scheduled international passenger flight from Ahmedabad, India to London Gatwick Airport, United Kingdom, ended in catastrophe just 32 seconds after takeoff on the 12th of June 2025 at 13:39 IST. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, operated by Air India, was carrying 230 passengers and 12 crew members. Tragically, all crew members and all but one passenger lost their lives. On the ground, the impact claimed 19 more lives and left 67 others with serious injuries. The aircraft veered off course immediately after liftoff and crashed into the hostel complex of BJ Medical College in Ahmedabad, approximately 1.7 kilometers beyond the runway threshold. The collision and ensuing fire completely destroyed the plane and caused extensive damage to multiple college buildings. This marked the first fatal accident and total hull loss involving the Boeing 787 Dreamliner since its entry into commercial service in 2011. So, what exactly happened? On June 12, 2025, Air India Flight 171 lifted off from Ahmedabad under a pale afternoon sky, its wings cutting through still air, its engines humming with the promise of a routine journey to London. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner was a marvel of modern engineering, efficient, quiet, designed to glide across continents with minimal human intervention. For 12 seconds, everything was perfect. Then, without warning, the sky turned against it. At 1:34 p.m., the aircraft began its ascent. By 1 hour, 34 minutes and 12 seconds, both fuel control levers had moved to cutoff. The engines, starved of fuel, fell silent. There was no explosion, no fireball, no mayday call, only the slow, inevitable descent of a 60-ton glider, with no power, no thrust, and no chance. 32 seconds after takeoff, Flight 171 struck the ground. 231 lives were lost. One passenger in seat 11A survived, pulled from the wreckage unconscious, the sole witness to a catastrophe that defied explanation. The world reacted with grief, then with suspicion. The first theory, pilot error. A mistake, a misjudgment. Then came the darker whisper, murder, suicide. The idea spread like smoke through headlines and forums. How else could both engines fail at once? How else could a plane so advanced fall so fast? But the truth, when it began to emerge, was far more unsettling. According to the preliminary investigation report released on the 8th of July 2025 by India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, AAIB, both engines lost thrust moments after takeoff when their fuel control switches unexpectedly transitioned from run to cutoff. The flight data recorders revealed that the switches moved 1 second apart, triggering an immediate and complete shutdown of both engines. The takeoff sequence began with a 62-second ground roll. At 13 hours, 38 minutes and 39 seconds IST, the aircraft rotated at 155 knots and became airborne 4 seconds later. Just 3 seconds after liftoff, as the plane reached its peak speed of 180 knots, 330 kilometers per h, 210 miles per hour, the first fuel switch moved to cutoff, followed by the second one second later. Airport CCTV footage confirmed no significant bird activity along the flight path and showed the aircraft already descending before it cleared the airport boundary. In the cockpit, a chilling exchange was captured on the voice recorder. One pilot asked, "Why did you cut off?" The other responded, "I didn't." The report did not identify which pilot spoke each line. Moments later, the ram air turbine, RAT, automatically deployed, indicating a critical loss of primary power, and began generating emergency hydraulic and electrical power 5 seconds after the first switch moved. Approximately 10 seconds after the first switch shifted to cutoff, it returned to run. The second switch followed 4 seconds later. The full authority digital engine control, FADEC systems on both engines then initiated automatic restart sequences. 9 seconds after the second switch was restored, a pilot issued a Mayday call declaring a complete loss of engine thrust. When air traffic control responded by requesting the flight's call sign, there was no reply. The cockpit voice and flight data recorders both ceased recording 6 seconds after the distress call, at 13 hours 39 minutes and 11 seconds, IAST, just 32 seconds into the flight. These are the facts. Horrifying, unfortunate, heartbreaking, but what lies behind them? We don't know, not yet. For weeks after the crash, the world whispered the same unspeakable word. Suicide, not accident, not system failure, not a tragic flaw in design or maintenance. No, this, they said, was betrayal. This became the dominant narrative, a murder-suicide in the sky. A pilot entrusted with 298 lives had, according to the story, committed the ultimate act of cowardice. In the final moments of ascent, he reached for the fuel switches and silenced both engines. He chose to kill himself, his co-pilot, and everyone else on board. It was the darkest accusation in aviation, a pilot turning against the sacred trust society places in him, the duty to protect life, to bring passengers home. And so the name of the pilot in the left seat of Air India Flight 171 was dragged through the mud of speculation, media frenzy, and premature judgment. But what if the truth is not one of shame, but of honor? What if instead of a traitor, we had a hero? What if the man they condemned was, in fact, the last person fighting to save every soul on that plane? The lie the world believed. The evidence, they said, was clear. The black box showed the fuel switches in cut-off position, therefore the pilot must have moved them. Therefore he must have done it on purpose. Case closed. Except it wasn't. Because the world ignored the most important words ever spoken in that cockpit, words that should have changed everything. Why did you cut off? I didn't, that's all. Just 5 words, calm, clear, confused. And yet they were dismissed. Because if a man is about to die, about to commit mass murder, why would he lie in his final breath? Why deny an act he had just committed, unless he was telling the truth, unless his hand never touched the switch, unless the plane shut itself down? Let's rewind it. This brief conversation among pilots keeps the secret of the tragedy. It is really important to understand what these words meant. The cockpit voice recorder captured a moment that should have changed everything. Why did you shut off the fuel? I didn't. That exchange, quiet, calm, confused, was not the voice of a man confessing. It was the voice of a man realizing something had gone terribly wrong, something beyond his control. Investigators found no signs of sabotage, no bird strikes, no volcanic ash, no structural breach. The flaps were extended to 10 degrees, exactly as required. The fuel was clean, tested, verified, shared with 5 other flights that landed safely that night. Every mechanical explanation was ruled out one by one, until only one question remained. Who or what moved the fuel switches? Because they were moved, the flight data recorder confirmed it. Both levers snapped to cut off within a second of each other, just 12 seconds after liftoff. But the black box does not see hands, it sees signals. It records electrical impulses, not intent, and that is where the story fractures. Could a pilot in panic have cut off both engines? Perhaps, but to do so instantly, symmetrically, without hesitation, against every protocol, every instinct, is almost unthinkable. More likely the command came not from flesh, but from code. What if the system was already sick? The stabilizer position transducer, a sensor feeding data to the FADEC, full authority digital engine control, had been logged as faulty. Engineers repaired it, but repairs don't always heal what's broken inside. And if that sensor sent false data, telling the FADEC the plane was pitching up dangerously, the system could have reacted automatically, cut fuel to prevent overspeed, not because the plane was failing, but because it thought it was. An uncommanded shutdown, a machine acting on a lie, and in that moment, Flight 171 was doomed. The betrayal was not human, it was mechanical. The pilot did not fail, he was failed. By a machine that stopped listening, by a sensor that lied, by a system that acted without command. The stabilizer position transducer, a critical sensor feeding data to the FADEC, had been logged as faulty before the flight. Engineers repaired it, but the fix was superficial, the underlying flaw remained, and when that sensor sent false data, telling the FADEC the plane was pitching up dangerously, the system reacted as programmed. It cut fuel to protect the engines. Even though the plane was climbing normally, even though the pilots were doing everything right, the FADEC didn't ask permission, it didn't warn, it simply acted, an uncommanded shutdown. And in that moment, Flight 171 was doomed. A plane cursed by history. This was not the first time the aircraft had failed. In 2015, the same Boeing 787 made an emergency landing due to a cabin air compressor surge, a known flaw in the Dreamliner fleet. In December 2024, it was grounded in Ahmedabad due to an unresolvable electrical snag. Engineers couldn't fix it, passengers were sent home. Weeks before the crash, a false fuel system warning lit up the cockpit. A phantom alert, a software ghost. But ghosts are not harmless, they desensitize, they breed doubt. And when the real failure came, no one believed it could be the machine. They blamed the man, yet this was not a crash caused by human failure. It was a collapse of systems, of maintenance logs ignored, of software flaws dismissed, of a plane that had been crying for help for years. The same aircraft had failed before. It had been grounded. It had thrown false alarms. It had shown signs of decay, and still it was allowed to fly. Let us be clear, perhaps the pilot did not give up. The flight data shows it. At VR speed, he pulled up. Perfectly, he adjusted flaps and thrust by the book. Then, silence, no fuel, and in that instant, he fought. He flipped the fuel switches back to run. He initiated engine relight. He worked the controls, trying to regain power, altitude, hope, and he did it calmly. The cockpit voice recorder captures no panic, no hesitation, no confession. Only a man doing his job. Only a man trying to save lives. And when the ram air turbine deployed, the last gasp of a dying aircraft, he was still working, still trying, still fighting until there was nothing left. Some already labeled pilot a killer, but what if he was a hero? We need to know the truth. Who are the real wrongdoers if they are not in the cockpit? The pilot did not betray the trust placed in him. He honored it until his last breath. To the mothers, fathers, children and loved ones of those who perished. Your families did not die because of a pilot's betrayal. They died because a machine failed. You were failed by the systems meant to protect you, and that failure demands accountability. The investigation must continue. This cannot end here. The flight data recorder does not show who moved the fuel switches, only that the signal was sent. It cannot distinguish between pilot input and a rogue command from a corrupted system. And until we answer that question, how did the fuel cutoff happen? Justice is denied. We still don't know the whole truth, but we believe this. The pilot was not a killer, not a coward. He was a professional, a pilot. Let his name be cleared. The final report has not been written. But one thing is certain, if no truth is revealed, this will happen again. Unless we stop blaming the last people who fought to save the flight, unless we listen to the silence. Unless we learn that the most dangerous thing in aviation is not human error, because the truth is not always what the black box says. Sometimes it's what the black box can't say. World deserves the truth.
And that's a wrap for today. We hope this presentation was both helpful and inspiring, and that it sparked your curiosity about astrology. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to check out more of our podcast. We've got plenty more celestial wisdom coming your way. Got a topic you're dying to explore? Let us know. It'll be my pleasure to dive into it in a future video and answer all your burning questions. Till then, stay curious, stay cosmic, and live your best, most aligned life.